This
11th.
conference will now be recorded.
All right. Welcome to the January 11th South Whitehall Planning Commission meeting. Before we get started, I'd just like to let everyone know in the audience that agenda item 4A, lot line adjustment and consolidation plan for Al Ahad Islamic Center, has been removed from the agenda. Also, agenda item 4C, 1429 Eck Road Outdoor Storage has been removed from the agenda. They will be requesting a time extension, so that'll be pretty quick. We'll move that up to 4A. But now we're on to agenda item number 2. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Hey, Mr. Adams, would you like to do the roll call?
Trevor Dombach.
Here.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Todd Farringer.
Here.
Brian Height.
Here.
Diane Kelly.
Here.
Mark Gluth. Not present. And David Wilson.
Here.
6 members present, sufficient for a quorum.
I'd also like to state Aaron Bett from the Pidcock Company, Township Engineer, is here. Jennifer Aldifer from Zader Law, Township Solicitor, is here. Dave Manhart, Director of Community Development, and Greg Adams, Township Planner, are here as well. Mr. Adams, would you like to do the meeting rules?
Yes. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments or questions, all in-person attendees will be required to use the microphones at all times. We request that the remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a limitation if there are many questions or if the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. Turn the podium microphone on and state your name, address, and comment or question. Please turn the podium microphone off when done. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute any callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Thank you.
All right, we're on agenda item number 3, review and approval of the October 19th, 2023 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments? Does not look like it. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any further comments? Does not look like it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain. I was not at the October 19th meeting.
Abstention for myself as well.
All right, the ayes have it.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, we're on agenda item 4, subdivision review, and the 1429 Eck Road Outdoor Storage Project. They pulled from the agenda, but they are asking for a time extension, so I don't think it should take too long. We'll move you up front.
Now it's on.
Yeah, so if you recall, this is the property with what I described in the memo in your packet, the anomalistic property line where a portion of our property extends in front of the property owner next door. At the last PC meeting, we were asked to try to reach out to that property owner, and Joe Petrucci did that on multiple occasions, and it has not progressed. So that leaves us with only a certain portion of the right-of-way area in front of the push car property that we can potentially improve with roadway improvements. In discussions with the township staff, we are looking to resubmit and to do what I'll call kind of the best we can, the baseline of what we can fit in that area, to give you as much as we can, but obviously we can't improve the land outside of what we own or what the township may already have right away too. We pulled off just because staff and the engineer asked if they could get, we had shown some ideas. They would like to see that on a plan. We are going to do that. There really aren't anything other than cleanup items left in that review letter from our position. So what we're asking is to not lose another month because of when your deadline is. If we can have 1 week, which would allow us to get those additional improvements on the plan and get those in. I believe myself and our engineer have spoken to, in combination, Mr. Adams and the Township Engineer's Office, and they are comfortable that since that's really the only significant thing that is changing, and at the end of the day, it's not overly significant itself, that it won't impinge upon their ability to review that, because we're not, other than the few cleanup items, we're not making any changes to the layout, et cetera. So with that, I'd ask for what I understand the policy is, the Planning Commission's approval of a extension to submit by 4 p.m. a week from today instead of 3 hours and 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and typically I would say we need to, and this is just my opinion, we would need to hold to the deadline, but it seems you've made a lot of progress with this plan. You're pulling it from this meeting, and there seems to be some positive movement to make those road frontage improvements that we've been requesting. And can we pull it up on the screen just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about? I think a good plan is on page 76 of the agenda packet. And if you want to put the cursor, and I'm not quite sure if it shows the property line there, but there's a small portion of this project's property in front of this individual homeowner's property. It's a small sliver.
Yeah.
And I know one item is we asked the applicant to reach out to the homeowner, and my understanding is you have, and there's been some trouble coordinating with them. I believe on the township's end, we're hearing everything secondhand. So would it be possible to try to reach out to the property owner one more time and include township staff and township engineering?
We do plan on reaching out to the property owner and setting up a
Okay.
meeting
Okay,
with all
great.
parties involved so that we can kind of get ahead of it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason we want that plan.
Yep.
So that we can have that as the talking point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I expressed this to Mr. Adams today. I mean, what I see this as is we get to resubmit, right? We come here in February. If there's been progress with that neighbor, we have said, Mr. Petrucci has said, I'm willing to improve whatever you can get me. But at some point, we just can't keep tabling and So what we would like to say is we'll give the plan that does whatever can be done in what is under our control now. That would be what would move forward. But if a week after we did that, we keep moving with that, He'll have his engineer redo the plan to add another 5 feet of improvements. If you guys have, if between that conversation with the township, the property owner and Mr. Petrucci, it ends up there will be some more. We'll do that. But he just said, because you may or may not realize he's the equitable owner.
Yeah.
At some point, he's got to,
Yeah, it's
you know,
understood. There's only so much you can do.
it's not your
Yeah.
problem, but it's a fact of law. It's a reality, right? So
What do you need from us to get the extension?
I think I just need you to approve me to submit it 1 week from now, and that's it, right?
Yeah, just a motion would be sufficient.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to grant the extension as requested.
Do we have a second?
I do have one comment, just for information speaking. The Planning Commission deadline to act on the plan is February 19th. Next Planning Commission meeting is February 8th. So at this point, we do not need a waiver if all goes well.
Okay.
I second. All right. Any final comments from the Planning Commission, from the audience? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No opposed? Like the motion passes.
February.
Yep. See you next month.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this is Leo DeVito, the alternate solicitor. I am signing off as my business is complete this evening. Thank you, and wish everybody a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, we're on agenda item 4B, 81 South Cedar Crest Boulevard. It's a residential subdivision. Greg, would you like to do the staff presentation?
Yes. This is an application to develop the properties located at 81 South Cedar Crest Boulevard and 111 South Cedar Crest Boulevard. The plan proposes to consolidate the two parcels, raise the existing dwelling and outbuildings, create 11 lots of not less than 9,600 square feet for single dwelling units, and one lot containing the remainder of the tract for stormwater management, and 400 linear feet of new road on the 8.3045 acre tract. The property is to be served by public water and sewer and is zoned R4 medium density residential. The estate of Morris and Bertha Safransky, the estate is the owner of 81 South Cedar Crest Boulevard. Hallmark Homes Cedar Crest LLC is the owner of 111 South Cedar Crest Boulevard. Hallmark Homes Cedar Crest LLC is the applicant. Interestingly enough, there's been no previous consideration on this tract before. The recommendation of the township is that the applicant utilize the comments of the reviewing agencies and those of the Planning Commission to assist in the preparation of the preliminary plans. Deadlines to act on the plan are not applicable to sketch plans. Thank you.
All right, and I'll just reiterate what Greg said. This is a sketch plan. It's not an official preliminary or final land development plan, so we'll provide some input and recommendations, but we won't be making any formal votes or actions tonight. So now we'll move to the engineer's presentation.
As Greg and Mr. Wilson had mentioned, we provided a memo on January 4th to the township. Our comments have been provided to assist with the preparation of the final and preliminary final plan submission to address items such as stormwater management, truck turning templates, and sketch plan drafting requirements. We note that the frontage, which includes right-of-way dedication, frontage improvements, right-of-way dedication, cartway widening, curb, sidewalk, monuments, and street trees are required along Cedar Crest Boulevard and the proposed cul-de-sac within this area. The improvements for Cedar Crest should ultimately be coordinated and permitted by PennDOT. Due to the close proximity of the site to Cedar Crest College and the Cedar Creek Park, we would recommend pedestrian connectivity to be considered. Additionally, a portion of the site appears to be in close proximity to the Cedar Creek, which is historically prone to flooding. We would recommend that the proposed site improvements consider the effects of the FEMA mappings. The proposed lot configuration provides open space behind each lot and to the northeast corner of the property. It should be discussed if the open space is to be owned and maintained by an HOA or another entity. Since this is a sketch plan, a more detailed engineering review will be provided once preliminary final plans have been submitted.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. Would the applicant like to come in, do your presentation?
Good evening. I'm Rich Carroll with Hallmark Homes Group. We are a residential land development and home building company out of Warrington, Bucks County. I'm here tonight with my engineer, Rob Cunningham, principal of Holmes Cunningham Engineering. As you guys have already laid out, kind of the project, we've received all the letters. We've gone through everything. As there's going to be no action taken, we'd rather just get some clarification on a couple of the items within the letters. Most of what was provided in the letters will comply. As the engineer has pointed out, there is some trail connectivity that's referenced in multiple letters. So I think that's kind of where I'd want to start. In terms of the parcel, if you're looking at the screen, Cedar Creek Park is to the left, which is actually downhill from our parcel, and Cedar Crest College is to the right, which is uphill from our parcel. There is about 80 feet of elevation change from left to right across our frontage. So it is significantly higher than the park itself. We only have one little bit of floodplain on our property, and I'll use a pointer here, and it's at this, pointer's not gonna work on that. It's at the very tail end of the property at that point. Yes, thank you. So flooding and things of that nature are going to all happen significantly below us in the actual park. From the houses, from our new proposed road down to the edge of our property line, we fall roughly 40 feet in elevation, 44 feet in elevation. So I don't think flooding is going to be a concern. As far as connectivity, I bring up all of the elevation change because it's drastic. Right now, there is no sidewalk or walking path at all on the east side or west side of Cedar Crest Boulevard in this area. The closest walking path you have is in the park, which you can see on the plan in the picture, in the back corner there. And then to the south of the property, the closest sidewalk or walking path you have is down at the shopping center on the opposite side of Hamilton Boulevard. So there is no sidewalk whatsoever. And additionally, each side, the college and the park are both located in Allentown. So connectivity is kind of, we're an island. We're the only little sliver of South Whitehall Township on this side of the road until you get down towards to the shopping center south of Hamilton Boulevard. So the neighborhoods across from us, which consist of Chestnut, which aligns with our new road, our new proposed road, and Union, Chestnut has no curb, no sidewalk. Union has some curb and no sidewalk. So in terms of walkability, how would you like to see us proceed?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you know, what I typically recommend is setting up a meeting with township staff and engineering to discuss it, because in these township meetings, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. So just to be respectful of everyone's time, we do understand there's no sidewalk out there, and we do hear that a lot, but this provides an opportunity to improve that portion of the street frontage and have others potentially tie into it. I know the township has discussed, trail systems and whatnot. And that may be something that makes more sense for this development. Now, without getting into the weeds, I think if you set up a meeting with township staff and engineering, you guys could hash that out. And, there, land development and subdivisions, there's back and forth, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's something that you'll need to hash out a bit with staff and engineering, and then present it to us again and the public, and we could provide more input. Those are my thoughts in terms of, sidewalks and trails.
If I could just jump in. So this section of Cedar Crest was part of a road safety audit that PennDOT did. They looked at connectivity, they looked at pedestrian movements, and the concept of having that frontage sidewalked, because the college is there. It has more to do with the college and those folks getting down to the shopping area, but additionally getting into the park. It becomes a means for the students to potentially make a loop out of it. What I would suggest, and it's on my list to do as well, is to reach out to Allentown and see if there's any sidewalk deferrals with the college, because then potentially we could connect all the way in for your residents to walk down to those shopping areas. So there's some coordination we need to do with Allentown, and we can set up another meeting.
Yeah, if you have
and
that
just to give-
contact,
Just to give, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If you have that contact, we'd be happy to do
I
that.
will get that contact. And we have had a very preliminary meeting. It was a while ago.
Yes.
But we did have a very initial meeting. And I believe at that meeting, we asked you to reach out to PennDOT. Is that how the roadway is configured based on their input?
So when we had our meeting, when we had our staff meeting, the plan was a loop road on the property with 18 twins, if you recall. PennDOT came back, we met all site safety distances, the road entrance to the north, our road straddled Chestnut, the road entrance to the north, I think had 15 feet to spare on site safety, looking south on Cedar Crest uphill. And so PennDOT said, no way. So we went from a loop road with 18 twins to a single access cul-de-sac with 11 single family homes. Both were by right applications, but PennDOT was pretty much the determining factor. They did give us a list. They actually reviewed that 18 lot twin plan and provided us a list of comments and recommendations, including all the frontage and including everything. The township has a copy of that review letter as well, I believe.
Did they comment at all about a right turn only exiting, or would they be allowing a possible right and left turn exiting?
No, they
It's
would
pretty
allow.
steep grade
Yeah,
upslope.
it's pretty steep. There was no comment about either. It was a full access road. Yeah.
Were they requiring any kind of widening of Cedar Crest along your frontage?
Yeah, they're going to require, well, let me back up. When they did the bridge and the other work down at the intersection, they took the right of way there. So you can see a right of way offset on the plan.
Yep.
That is already a 40-foot from center line PennDOT right of way.
Okay.
So the township's ultimate right of way is 50 foot from center line. That would be an additional 10 feet, which is somewhere where we can talk about, giving a trail easement, something of that nature. So there will be frontage requirements and frontage work. It was not a full turn lane. It was probably some shoulder winding, softening, tapering around the entrance, stuff like that. Right now where the house stands, there is a widened section already on that stretch.
And is this proposed to be a private street, a cul-de-sac, or for dedication to the township? I don't even know if it meets our standards.
It doesn't. So it will be probably an HOA street unless you guys want to take it, which by all
So
means.
my concern is garbage collection will not go in a private cul-de-sac, and there's a potential for, is there 11 houses? 44 trash and recycling containers along Cedar Crest. That's where I asked the widening of where you stage those trash.
We can work through that and we'll
Cool.
figure out
Yeah.
how to manage that. Yeah.
Because, usually they don't like going on private
No.
roads for liability
Right.
reasons. So
Yeah, we can work through those details.
I just wanted to make it obvious up front.
Yeah.
And also, widening was important to me because chances are there's going to be school children in these houses and school bus is going to stop right there and try to get them as far away from the Cedar Crest as possible. That's it for me.
As far as some of the other comments here, there were some comments and we can work through them with staff and with the professionals regarding possible waivers. The 800-foot offset on Cedar Crest Boulevard from Union, we're aligning with a existing road. Basically, PennDOT told us this is the location. So we're probably going to have, we will have a waiver for that. Internally, you guys have a 60 and 36-foot cartway. If this is going to be private, we'd look to probably reduce them into what we have proposed here, which is 50 and 30. We will be curbing the road because of stormwater control. So we can provide inlets and everything, so that won't be an issue. Sidewalk, street trees will have sidewalk. We could talk about in conjunction with the all the improvements, understanding that the ordinance requires it, but the surrounding neighborhood has none of it. So we can discuss those things with staff and everything. And then there was one other comment, which was 7C on the Pidcock letter, which was revise the design of the cul-de-sac for the 100-foot tangent between the curve and the street intersection. 50-foot is provided, so that's where the road comes in and then turns there between lots 1 and 11. We can probably work out a distance there, but it's still going to be probably less than 100 feet. So we will ask for a waiver. We have a steep slope in the back, very steep in the back. So we're trying to minimize how far we cut down and into that slope so that the two lots at the back of the cul-de-sac have some usable yard there. So we can work that out with staff and everything. I think as far as comments go, getting direction on the walking path is going to be the biggest thing for us. And so we can work through that. So unless you guys have any, we're good then? Yeah, I think we covered everything we can work through with staff unless you guys have any questions for us.
Just another comment I have is the cluster mailboxes. Just take that into account with your design. I know a lot of times the cluster mailboxes are put at the entrance of the road, so we want to avoid cars lining up, during rush hour when they come home and, lining up back onto Cedar Crest. That's pretty much everything I have. Are there any other comments?
I just have a general, go ahead. Just a general question. The South Whitehall Township official map indicates significant woodlands and steep slopes here, which is obvious from the aerial map. In terms of open space and your plans with this heavily wooded area, is there something within your design that you're going to try to maybe maintain some of the?
No, so As I said initially, I think I believe it's 80 some feet of elevation change across the property. Anything that we don't have to clear and we don't have to touch will remain in its natural state. Unless the township wants more open space, it'll remain just passive open space maintained by the homeowners association, basically ringing the property, for the neighbors there. So we will have stormwater facilities down on the lower portion of the property, but as far as anything else, the property is fairly steep to be at all usable.
Thank you.
So you'll try to do the grading to preserve as much of the existing woods as possible.
Yeah, the less we have to touch here, the better.
I have a comment. Going back to Mr. Height's comment about the road widening, the cul-de-sac for a turning radius for fire apparatus. I know public safety will have their comment about that, but what's your plan for that?
We will have a turning template on there.
Okay.
It'll meet the requirements of whatever their largest vehicle is. So we'll provide that in the plan set. We'll have all the turning templates that meet all the requirements.
Okay.
Anyone else on the planning commission?
Have you looked at that steep slope at all in terms of runoff or overall stability? Yep.
Yeah, we have. We're going to be able
See, it
to.
cuts back into lot 6.
Yeah, there will be some retaining walls in that back corner on the plan. They will be on lot there. So there is areas that,
That'll be.
as I mentioned, we will be curving the road. We will be putting the inlets in to control all that stormwater to get them down to the stormwater management facilities so that we do control all the runoff. So from that aspect, we're comfortable with what is out there and what we can do to it.
Thanks.
And I saw one of the comments about providing, snow push-off easement area.
Yeah, we can do that. That's not an issue. Yeah, right where the mailbox is already said.
All right. Anyone in the audience? Are there any? All right. Yes, please come to the podium. Just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Jago. I'm actually on Chestnut Drive, 3310 Chestnut Drive, Allentown. I just got one. I don't know if anybody has actually watched traffic trying to pull out of Chestnut Drive. It's suicide at a good time. If you add 11 houses down there, it's going to be double jeopardy. Is there any chance? I suspect it's going to be a PennDOT answer. Are we going to get a traffic light there? Because that's my neighbor here, Alan, as well. That's what our question is.
Yeah, and in terms of traffic signals, PennDOT dictates that, and
I guess it's all going to be about a vision thing, right? How far you can see.
Vision. It's how much traffic, and there's certain warrants, what PennDOT calls warrants. So there's a threshold of traffic, and if the amount of traffic does not exceed that warrant or threshold, that PennDOT will not let you put a light. It's PennDOT's protocol that if it surpasses that threshold, they'll say you have to put a light, and they'll put a light. If it does not surpass that threshold, they say you cannot, and that's really a PennDOT call.
And secondly, then the sidewalks that you're talking about. So you're going to run a sidewalk from the development up to the stores, and possibly, I guess that's a South Whitehall Township. Just a thought. How about running a sidewalk? Some people like exercise, to go the entire way down. Maybe there's an entrance. I don't know who owns that property of to actually run a pathway down there. I've seen people, I walked down there and nearly been clipped quite a few times.
Yeah, and this is a good opportunity to provide, sidewalk and walking paths. I will say Pennsylvania code, municipalities planning code, only allows us as a township to require the street frontage improvements fronting on the property. So we can't require a developer to extend sidewalk beyond.
Yeah,
their
I understand
property.
the developer doesn't want to have a financial need for that, but I don't know whether,
I don't even know who builds
And like
sidewalks.
Mr. Manhart indicated earlier, he's going to reach out to the city of Allentown to see if there was any projects done where they deferred sidewalks to a
Okay.
later date.
Okay.
And then that would be our mechanism to encourage the Allentown to request that sidewalks be put in by those property owners for connectivity and safety.
Okay. And sorry, I'm done after this. One last thing. Does anybody during the summer trim any of this foliage back? Because you cannot, I mean, I do it for chestnut, but basically it comes further and further and further out and you cannot see, yeah, in the winter right now, you can see 70, I don't know how many feet up the road you can. In the middle of the summer, you can't see more than like 20, 30 feet. So does anybody in the township or I don't know, PennDOT have the responsibility for that?
It's a PennDOT road.
So that's all that. It's all these questions for them rather than you guys. Okay.
I have a working relationship with PennDOT. I will mention something to their road crew supervisor. So.
Okay. All right. I'm done. Sorry to drag this out. Thanks, guys.
No, thanks. We love public input and we really encourage it. Thank you.
I would just add one other thing on some of those comments. Even though it's across Cedar Crest, the northern end of that property on the other side is part of Lehigh County Parkland. So it's on the opposite side of Cedar Crest, but just something to keep in note as we go forward.
All right. Is there anyone else in the audience or is there anyone online? No? All right. Any follow-up questions? All right, so this is a sketch plan, so we aren't taking any official actions. Thanks for your presentation. We really appreciate it. I do recommend reconnecting with township staff and engineering to work out some of these walking paths and move forward with the design. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're on agenda item number 5, zoning ordinance amendments. Mr. Adams, it's all yours.
Yes, this is an ordinance amending zoning ordinance section 35042E, fences and retaining walls to require a zoning permit for all fences and retaining walls. The background on this, staff has been aware of issues regarding fences and walls. Currently, the ordinance states that if the fence is 4 feet or higher 4 feet or greater in height above grade, a permit is required, which means that if it's less than 4 feet, a permit is not required. So basically what we've been finding out happening is that fences smaller than 4 feet start popping up in places they shouldn't be. Township easements, right of way, within clear sight triangles, stuff like that. Because if there's no permit required, the resident doesn't have to contact the township to put in the fence. So this has been happening for many years. It seems to be lately becoming more of an issue. With zoning ordinance service pack 2C, which we reviewed a year and a half ago, this was embedded in it at the time. That was one of the amendments that was recommended for approval. 2C hasn't moved forward yet, but a couple of more issues with fences in easements have cropped up. So at that point, staff decided that this should be moved forward to hopefully address these issues and try to take care of them before they really start becoming major issues. So from the ordinance amendment that had been recommended for approval in 2C, we once again reviewed that and we added a few things, made a few changes. And if you look on page 115 of your packet, you can see the changes that have occurred. So basically, I'll just run through them really quickly. Starting with subsection 1, We're obviously going to remove the stipulation that any fence 4 feet or higher have a permit and replace it with any fence or wall shall require an approved zoning permit. And also make the point that all fences greater than 6 feet and walls greater than 4 feet in height above grade shall also require a building permit. That's something in the building code. It's just good to reference that because let people know that the additional permitting might be required. Moving down through it, we did add prohibited fences and fencing materials, just to make the list more or less correct. Then we get into the heart of the real changes. Subsection 5 is now prohibited locations. So we are saying no fence shall be erected, A, within a South Whitehall Township utility or drainage easement. That's what's currently there. We are removing unless approved by the Board of Commissioners. That has become an issue, and the word seems to be out there that all you have to do to fix this is go to the board and they'll grant you a waiver. The problem is that you're in an easement. So if you put your fence in the easement and a water main breaks or a storm sewer clogs and our guys have to go out there at 11:30 at night, your fence is coming down and they're not going to be pretty about it. They have to fix the issue. So that's often a source of problem with residents. So we just want to try to curtail that entirely. So that will come out. We then added, you can't put a fence within a clear sight triangle of an intersection of 2 or more public streets. That's common sense. I believe that's already in the clear sight triangle ordinance, but we also want to put it in zoning so that the zoning officer can cite that as well. C, we want to add so that you're prohibiting a fence from interfering with the clear sight of a vehicle exiting a driveway onto a public street. Oftentimes you will see these things put in, and just due to the geometry, the driveway might be blocked by a hedge or a fence, the edge of a fence. Like I said, just due to the geometry of the driveway entering onto a public street. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to require that sort of thing wherever possible. A question?
What about private streets and driveways?
I believe this applies regardless. Yeah.
I'm just looking at public street.
Yeah.
Now. And some homeowner is going to say, I live on a private street, so I don't apply.
Right.
So
we can certainly clarify that.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. We're also going to remove the exempt fences and walls portion. Basically, there was an idea that these fences were exempt from permitting, period. But in looking at them, staff decided that that doesn't make a lot of sense. If we're going to require permits for pretty much all fences, it should be all fences. So that's what we're looking at, including construction fences. That gives us an idea that when a construction site is secured, a fence should be there. A permit allows us to review the specifications for the fence being put up, and we also know that a fence is actually being installed. So we feel that that's a good idea to have that. And then finally, turning the page, subsection 6, issuance of permit. So basically that adds 2 subsections to that. When we issue a permit, we are going to require the location of the fence be clearly marked on the site so that when the zoning officer goes out there, she can tell where exactly that fence is supposed to be. And the second one is that a PA 1 call number for the fence or retaining wall shall be received by the zoning officer. That just makes sure that the resident or the construction contractor has actually gotten a PA 1 call for their fence. So at this point, those are the changes that are being proposed. We will clarify that subsection 5 to ensure that yes, it is both private and public streets. If you have any questions, we are.
What's the permit fee?
Zoning only permit is $50. Obviously, if it's a building permit, that's going to be more, but typically that will require a third-party review if it is building.
But my comments are the same as when we first discussed this, is like, what's the definition of a fence? And if somebody around a garden wants to put a 1-foot fence for decoration or something,
Hmm?
do they still need the $50 permit and the PA1 call? Because it's only going to go in 4 inches in the ground at most. Not that we're going to be the fence police in this township, or at least I hope not, but I could see neighboring squirrels happening. But
Yes.
that's the same comment I had before.
Yeah. Can certainly kick that one around and see if we can come up with something that would assist in that.
Because there's a lot of decorative fencing around like edges of sidewalk or whatever,
Mhm.
small gardens, that a rabbit could jump over, but
Yeah.
I don't expect the township to have a fence enforcement officer, but I do like the concept of it because there are encroaching in the safety issues
Mm-hmm.
and construction easy, and anything we can do to make Herb Bender's job easier at 2 a.m. in a storm, I'm all for it. So,
Yes.
my comments.
And he wholeheartedly endorses this. So,
I can imagine.
I have a question more than a comment.
okay.
Under this, would this also cover, let's say somebody wants to put a fence that has a gate covers their driveway. Would that also cover this at this point too? So we would have to have a width requirement, let's say, if they're going to put a gate across their driveway if it's a long driveway. I'll use the example of the house down here across from Asbury Church.
Mhm.
Fire truck will not fit through that gate. When they put that up, that was not taken into consideration.
That's a good point.
So that
I'm not trying to
would-
nitpick.
No, it's a great point. But there's kind of the overlap between the driveway standards and the fence standards, so that to me that would kind of fall under the driveway standards, as far as dictating the width of the driveway, because when you typically put a gate in, you put it at the edge of the
I mean, this is
pavement.
it's not going to happen 99% of the time but there is that
Right.
1% that it does happen. I'm just using that residence as an example.
Mm.
We ran into this problem after it was erected that we cannot get fire apparatus up that driveway now. I'm just wondering, where do we cover that at some point?
We'll look into where to put that. And one of the things with the zoning review, if things like that come up, we can always ask the question. But again, it's getting those permits in the door so that we can actually look at them.
Okay. Just a question.
Yep, no, great one.
Yeah.
So just to, I don't know, get a transparent answer. So say somebody puts a fence up in their backyard around their garden. It's not in the sight line. It's not in a prohibited location, but they don't pull a permit for it. And somebody complains. What's the course of action for that resident?
So it would be a request for investigation. It would go to our code enforcement officer. They would go out and require a permit is the remedy. So you can do after the fence is installed, you can submit a permit, and if it passes everything, it's an issued permit, compliant fence.
And chances are that will occur.
Yeah.
Yes,
Somebody's
yes, it will occur. It
And-
probably has occurred.
It's probably occurring today. Or
Yeah.
Maybe not today, but in the spring.
Yeah.
Would you have to do that every year to that point? Some people take their gardens down,
No,
take the fence down and then put it back up.
right. Once you have the permit, as long as it's installed according to that permit, it would hold, runs with the land.
I do feel like there should be some language in there around gardens or
Mhm.
flower beds or something,
Yeah.
because people like that stuff, and I think it'd be burdensome to the
Yeah,
property owner to pay $50
I
for
think we have to,
something around a
It's
flower
a
bed.
temporary fence.
yeah, and I thought about temporary fences, but then we get into the construction fencing, and I started thinking about the depth of the footer or something like that, because a garden fence, you typically step on it.
Right.
So maybe looking for some language like that, so that if you can do it with just a, I don't know, a 5-pound mallet or something, as opposed to
The one
you know,
thing I've
digging
learned,
posts and
the one thing I've learned after 13, almost 14 years on this board is fences and signs, long discussion.
yes,
Mhm.
it typically is.
I want to add to the
Not just
discussion.
South Whitehall.
I have a couple of questions. Does this also apply to fences around swimming pools?
So fences around,
Yeah.
yes, it does. But I kind of the backing into it, the swimming pool would have the setbacks, so that wouldn't apply. Swimming pool couldn't be in the easement, so, but fences with pools are part of the UCC permitting process. So they're required and inspected as part of that, the building permit.
Thank you.
And actually, one of the reasons why we have the 4 foot is because the UCC requires a 4 foot or greater fence around a pool. So technically, all pool fences have to get a permit regardless.
Very good. And one last question, the issuance of permit, it states that prior to the issuance, the location of the fence shall be clearly marked for site inspection. So if someone from the township needs to go out and inspect, what is the process to assure that the site that was marked is actually where that fence is going to end up when it's completed?
So typically what we're doing is we're building in like a pre-install and a post-install. So we'll go back out and double check it. The other part of staking the fence is prior to installation is so that the neighbors are aware. One of the things that people will come in and put a fence and the neighbor says, well, I had no idea. And this at least gives the neighbor an opportunity to hopefully get ahead of any property line disputes, where they can say, well, you're putting a fence on my property. We'll get the call and we'll make them sort it out.
So will we notice the adjacent neighbors?
It won't be a notice. No, there's no public notice requirement, but just physically marking a fence, your neighbor's going to notice, unless you do it while they're on vacation or something, but
That's what I was thinking. Or if they're not very observant and they don't notice a small
Yeah.
stake in the
Yeah.
ground and then the fence is put up and then they're upset that they were not aware of it.
Or they're snowbirds and live in Florida half the year.
yeah, it's hard to craft ordinances that catch everything.
It's really for the one call though. That's why you do the market.
It's one
You have
call
to-
and the
there's-
easements are the big
it's-
ones.
You
Yeah.
got to mark it out per 811,
Yeah.
which is a white stake, paint,
Yep.
or flag at the location of the location. So
Yep.
I don't think we should go beyond that because it's really for that. If
Right,
it's on your property.
Right, and that's a good point. We've actually had some situations in which the neighbors on the plot plan showed a fence on what they believed was their property, but it was actually in the right of way or somewhere like that. So once again, if the zoning officer goes out and sees the fence is staked out 2 feet from a curb, that's a problem because that's probably in the right of way. So it allows the zoning officer then to investigate a little deeper.
What about invisible fences? Like the dog, underground dog
Yeah.
electric fence.
I don't, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
It's just
I can't even remember if because there's low voltage. I don't know how.
you still have to put in a one call.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'd have to
do.
do a one call for
Yeah.
sure, but I
That's
don't know
not
if they're
It is
permitted.
technically, hey, you got them there. Fence.
Oh, is the fence.
Call themselves invisible fence, right?
I guess we gotta clear up that definition.
I thought we worked this out last year. Honestly. I was surprised to see this come back around. on the agenda.
That's amazing what you can think of,
Yeah.
Do you have everything you need, Greg?
Unless you have any more comments.
I'm sure we'll have the next time this comes. We always do.
No, you're right. It's like no matter how much we think and we get everybody in that we can, you come to somebody else and they can think of something you never thought of. So yeah, please give us. If you think of something like 2 a.m., shoot me an email, okay?
Wait, do we need to make a motion to take it under advisement or anything?
No, we'll bring it back with corrections.
All right, agenda item number 6, Act 537 plan update.
Yes, so the Act 537 plan update was here at the September 21st meeting, where the Planning Commission reviewed the draft 537 plan and recommended approval to the Board of Commissioners. In the time since then, we've done another review. We've refined some of the documentation that gets included in that, made some clarifications on meeting the checklist as part of the DEP requirements. So we made those changes, and staff and legal thought it prudent to go back to the Planning Commission for a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. The plan itself is really to effectuate the transfer of the authority to the township. There's no, the only areas identified for expansion in this plan are Ridge Farm, which will serve letters or planning modules or pending planning modules. So those are what's shown in the future growth areas. With regards to like a full plan and expanding areas, that is something we see will come out of our zoning updates and when we start looking at comprehensive plan implementation items. So this is really just kind of, they call it a public to public transfer, is the lingo for DEP. So it's kind of a light version of a 537 plan. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Right, does anyone have questions? Nope. Is there anyone, there's no one in the audience. Is there anyone online that may have questions?
Nope.
All right. Move on to agenda item number.
Motion.
Oh,
We need to make a motion to approve the revised draft to the Board of Commissioners. I'll make that motion.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Agenda item number 7, draft planning commission annual report.
This is our draft annual report for 2023. Basically speaking, page 1, I've updated those members who came on and left in 2023. Page 2 is basically what I'm looking for input from the Planning Commission. Our activity in overview details what the Planning Commission actually did last year. The comprehensive plan update shows that the plan was indeed adopted on March 15th. Item C are the 2023 goals and aspirations that the Planning Commission devised back in January and February of 2023. So I took that list and gave updates what actually occurred during the year. So the bold-faced items are what happened. That's the history. And then D will be your 2024 goals and aspirations. And that's really what I'm looking for from you guys. What do you want to accomplish in 2024? And then, of course, item E is the detail of every meeting and what occurred from it.
One thing the LVPC training, I attended some of that. I thought that was very helpful. I think it would be good if the township could still do that with planning commission members.
I will double check the budget and get back to you.
Yeah, I attended a couple when I first joined the planning commission. I thought it was helpful. And then I think it there wasn't maybe budget or something available. Came back for the third. I think they're helpful completely. For
They've
been on the planning commission for 10 years or 1 year. I think
they're very helpful.
very good.
Even when I was at LVPC, I took a couple, and it's really good for a refresher. Like you said, if you've been on for 10 years, it's still good to go back, and you're going to learn something new. So yes, I will look at the budget and sketch some things out and let the planning commission know.
Even if there isn't budget, just to let people know too.
One of the related topics is when I start getting planning related webinars that are free, I can always forward those as well. I get most of them require some sort of fee or something, but when I do get the free ones, I can forward those on if I think the commission might be interested in hot
PennDOT
logging
has
or
a
not.
bunch that are free.
I just did their adaptive reuse one.
Yeah.
Saw that one today.
You can send out that link.
Yeah.
PennDOT connects.
I think communication to the whole planning commission. I think I may have been the only one emailed about the projects being removed tonight. So we have 7 planning commission members. I think it's a good idea if everyone's included.
Yeah, I think that was simply a case of I wanted you to be on the first one to be aware.
Yep.
And then things got a little busy and I didn't.
Yeah,
get to
I
the
know
rest of
it's
you.
right at the end of the day, so
Yep.
you're probably rushing to
Yeah, I
get all this
apologize for
together
that.
for us.
Yep.
I feel like we need to do something with the comprehensive plan. We put in an extraordinary amount of effort. You're probably getting to that.
I was gonna, yes.
I feel like that took
Perfect
up every
timing.
meeting for my first kind of tenure on the planning commission. So
Yes.
I'm interested to see what's next.
Yeah. So for goals and aspirations, I think for the what we talked about, we can put something about continuing education for planning commission members. The 2023 goals, we had the under direction of the BOC implementing official map update and zoning ordinance update. We haven't gotten to that point with implementation. The other thing related to this is the annual report, and we had talked about doing a re-examination report was one of the implementation items out of the comprehensive plan. We've decided to do that on the anniversary of the adoption. So we can take care of it separately. Beginning of the year is usually pretty crazy anyway. So it'll give us some time to work on that. The plan is we'll have an implementation status sheet, go over all the implementation items, and then there's a series of questions we're kind of working out that'll lead us to the decision if there's anything that needs to be updated. So during that re-examination report, we'll work with the planning commission to kind of come up with some answers to these questions, and then that will go to the Board of Commissioners. So that's kind of how the re-examination piece will work out. Other items related to the comprehensive plan is I was going to do it during the transportation update, but we do have implementation items ongoing as part of the comp plan. we had the landscapes plan, which we're finalizing. That's really the open space plan for the township. And coming out of that was a historic resource inventory, is being undertaken by the consultant we had for the landscapes plan. I just went through the list today for my quarterly report for the BOC, and I'm kind of amazed at how much has started. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with the commission. I would encourage involvement in any of these implementation items. The meetings that we had for the open space plan were really good. The ag panel was probably the best one that we had. Diane was there. So every once in a while we get them right. So come on out. So I think with 2024 goals and aspirations, we can continue to monitor implementation items and make recommendations to the BOC as needed or something along those lines.
Dave, thank you for reminding me about the ag meeting. I know the planners weren't there, but the meetings are recorded. And if you're able to watch it, it really was an amazing amount of information that I don't think the township has ever addressed before. But to Trevor's point, and I think Dave's too, I know as a commissioner on the board, I'm hearing about the implementations, but I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect between what the governing body is seeing happen, because it seems like every meeting you're bringing forth something that we're working on to implement, which is exciting, but this board is sort of in the shadows. So
yeah, we used to have comprehensive plan update on every meeting. So maybe it's an comprehensive plan implementation update. Because yeah, you're absolutely right. There's kind of that disconnect.
it's not
I
a
apologize
critique.
for that.
Yeah, no, it's not a critique.
No, it's acknowledged, and we kind of understand. We typically try and do it through emails, but there's nothing beats, giving you guys a verbal update or sharing some of the tools that we're developing, and as things start coming to a head, and we'll start bringing them to the planning commission.
One other point, it's important here, the audience for planning is sometimes very different than the audience who might be at a Board of Commissioners meeting. And it's an opportunity to continue to keep the public engaged with what is happening with the content.
Yeah, and it's, we're talking about development, and people at the planning commission are usually here for development. So yeah, makes sense.
Great. Does anyone have any additional questions? There's no one in the audience. Is there anyone online?
No comments.
Okay.
Great. All right, so we'll take your comments, kind of synthesize out some goals and aspirations there, bring them back in February, and then we can get them before the board in March, as we should.
All right. We're on agenda item number 8, transportation infrastructure update.
Okay, so the Tillman interchange is to be let in July 2024. There's not much else from LTAP. We do note that with the recent major storm, it brought 3 inches of rain in addition to the snow melt. This is just something we should keep in mind for the road closures that are happening now, kind of inventoried, so that we can look to get these projects maybe on the tip. We could also look to have this inventory and see if there's any land development projects that are currently happening in these areas, so that we could improve those situations through that process as well.
I would like to add an item for the transportation update. You may have gotten emails about the active transportation safety action plan. We received and this goes to the implementation items. We received a grant from WalkWorks to do an active transportation plan. We took that opportunity to address multiple items on the implementation. So we're looking at the active transportation plan. So we're looking at bike, ped, transit. Also, we're rolling in the transportation safety. There's a program through FHWA called Safe Streets for All. The way that program works is you have to have a SS4A compliant plan before you can be eligible for infrastructure funding. They fund those plans, but the timeline typically is 2+ years to get through them. And then you're missing 2+ years of potential infrastructure funding. So we're doing that as part of this active transportation plan and safety action plan so that we have an opportunity to be eligible for the infrastructure funding. The big piece of both of these two plans that the feds and WalkWorks, the grant administrators, is a steering committee. And the steering committee they look for is a very broad steering committee. They have a checklist of different topics to cover. So we have representatives from Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, the PennDOT school district, the health networks, AARP, United Way, Lanta. So it's a very diverse steering committee. And additionally, we would like a representative from the Planning Commission. I think we're looking at 3 steering committee meetings because of the composition of the steering committee. We're trying to get those during the day. So if anybody thinks they might be available for these meetings, and we're seeking a volunteer.
I cannot volunteer because I'm already with the LVPC. So
I could volunteer unless someone else is.
I was just gonna ask what time, like, you think it during the normal workday? Like 8?
Yeah, so I think we're looking at, he just sent it out today. I think it's 2:00. The first meeting is actually January 19th, 18th. It's right after the BOC meeting. We are running them hybrid. So, I mean, we would love people to be in person, but we understand that sometimes hybrid is required. So with that.
I'm happy to do it unless
if
Dave
you wanna-
wants to do it. I don't want to take anything from you, or, add anything more. but-
Dave's here on shade tree meetings as well, so.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
Great.
Yeah, I can
Great.
definitely do hybrid or.
Okay, we'll add you to the list. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it really ties into the connectivity we talked about with the Cedar Crest project, looking at sidewalk connectivity and safety, rolling in the safety piece of it. So it's an exciting project on a very accelerated timeline as well.
I have participated in several municipalities, including Bethlehem Township in Northampton County. You learn a lot about a municipality and their safety issues really quick, even if you've lived here your whole life.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone have any questions, comments, or anyone online? No. Great. Election of officers. Jennifer?
Thank you. Mr. Wilson had requested that once the chairman is elected tonight, I turn over the meeting so that that chairman can then proceed to elect the vice chairman and the secretary. So that's what I will be doing. But right now, we'll open up nominations for the office of chairman.
I nominate David Wilson.
I'll second that nomination.
Are there any further nominations? We're going to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion passes, and I'm going to return the meeting then to Mr. Wilson.
All right. I'll nominate Brian Height for vice chair. You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Any comments? All in favor, I guess, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. And then for secretary? Do we have anyone that wants to make a nomination? I'll nominate Tim, secretary.
I'll second the motion.
You didn't have Mark here.
Should I clarify that you have to be willing to serve in this position?
Are there any other Tims in the room?
It might be helpful to explain the duties of the secretary.
Greg, I'll let you explain the duties.
We're not here on vacation
If Dave
together.
and Brian are here, you get to be in the big chair. But other than that, I think I signed the plan. So if I, for some reason, am not available, you would have to step up and sign the plans to go for recording.
When I was secretary, I never ran a meeting, but I did have to sign plans once. So.
Wow.
I believe I've held the position for last year. And
Did you enjoy it?
You did a great
plain
job.
sailing.
Did we call for a vote?
No, we have a motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. All right. Curtis, you have the floor.
Okay. I'd like to say, first off, I think this meeting ran well. I think the new format seems to work okay. And quite frankly, it's been nice having the additional time to deal with the new submissions coming in because we have gotten new submissions. The resubmission process seems to work well. I think we all have an understanding of what's supposed to happen. So I like it. We'll see how this continues over time. And if we need to tweak it, we can tweak it. But it seems to be working nicely. So with that in mind, we now know exactly what you're going to see next month, February 8th. You will see Ridge Farm 1C. They'll be back. And from tonight's meeting, you have 1429 Eck Road Outdoor Storage will return, and the Mosque Lot Consolidation Plan will return. And basically, there's not going to be much change to either of them, so the packets will look very similar. And then finally, our new submission is 1619 Hausman Aesthetic Surgery Medical Office Building, which is a proposed, that's what it sounds like. I don't want to say plastic surgeon, but it is that sort of thing, and it's proposed right across the street here, between the strip mall and Longswater. The vacant lot there, yes.
Which was partially at
The
one
outdoor-
time the self-storage.
The self-storage, exactly. This is the other part of that lot.
All right. Is there anyone else online? Nope. All right. We want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We got something in the chat. Monica Hodges says, "Have a good night."
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.